Pronghorn Antelope, one of the prettiest North American big game. We're gonna go through the form prepping quite fast, so to save just some minutes in the video, because this is gonna be a little bit of a longer video. So one of the biggest challenge for a lot of guys that they're doing big game heads is that the eye socket of some of the horned animals are cut in half, or half of them is removed, as you can see in the photo here when we remove the skull plate for cleaning. And you just gotta take your time and put that skull plate back into its place to the point that you have the eye socket fairly rounded up, and to the point that when you look at it, it kind of makes sense. And you have to follow the contour of the form with the contour of the forehead of the animal on the back. So if it should looks quite natural when you put it back on there. It's kind of like, it's pretty hard to measure anything because every form can be different. So basically you got to go with your own sense of anatomy and understanding where the skull needs to be placed. And here most of the time I need to put a little block of plywood or something like that underneath the skull plate to keep it at the proper angle and the proper level. So I like to secure the plywood so it's not moving on me on top of the form, and with my pre-drilled holes on the skull plate, I like to push the screws in almost snug, fairly loose. Actually, it's not snug at all at the beginning, so I can adjust it for the last time before I can secure the screws down for good. Yeah, as you can see, I push the screws in and pull them out again, just maybe quarter inch or something, as long as it's giving me the movement on the skull. And then I go through all three screws one at a time to make sure that it's being secured in the right place. So in this video, again, we're going through the steps that needs to be basically spoken about. We're gonna go through those steps a little bit slower, and the other areas like this, which is applying the paper mache to smooth out the surface and rebuilding the skull, we're gonna go through these steps a little bit quicker. Just make sure all you're doing here at this stage is rebuilding the contour of the skull and the rest of the head, leaving enough space, or basically enough room, for the thickness of the skin when it's applied on top of your skull plate is not going to raise the surface too much. So on the sides of the horns, you're gonna have a perfect smooth transition from when the skin comes and meets the horns. For the eyes, there is a little trick here. You can see antelope eyes are quite dark. I like to shine some flashlight from underneath them, and with a marker I put a couple of marks on the white of the eye, just where the pupils are, so when I'm installing them on my form I can see where the eyes are, or where the pupils are. So for claying up the eyes, I like to start filling up the eye sockets with clay. Make sure that it's giving me symmetric basically sockets when I'm going to put the eyes inside. I don't install the eyes right away to build up. I try to build up the eye sockets to a proper shape before I install the eyes, because if you remember, we talked about it that we need to bring it back into a normal state. Half of it is usually gone when we remove the skull plate. So it seems like the skull plate, the eye sockets are quite rebuilt right now to the point that we can start installing the eyes. Yeah, I'm still rebuilding it a little bit. There you go. Looks quite good to me right now. With a little bit of a ball of clay to push behind the eyes, in the cavity in the eyes, you can start putting the eyes inside the eye sockets. There you go. We put the ball of clay inside the eye, and the two marks that we put on both sides of the pupil helps us a lot here to make sure that we are having the eyes installed in and pushed into the clay quite parallel to the ground. Put both eyes in first before we do anything else. So when you're having your mannequin on your stand, make sure that the mannequin is basically placed on your stand quite level. And on antelopes, we have quite a large eye socket and the eyes can freely move. So again, to ensure that your eyes are not up and down, use those lines that you put on the eyes on your level to ensure that the eyes are perfectly in proper distance. I'm sorry, they're quite level to the ground, and with a pin on the nose and using a ruler or measuring tape, it gives you the proper distance from their nose. So basically you have to adjust two things. Make sure that they are level, that they're not up and down, and also you have to make sure that the eyes are not back and forth from the nose. So with a little bit of a roll of clay, you work the lower lid. Sorry, sometimes I cover up the view because the camera is just stationary there. Now we put another small roll of clay just to fill up the gaps between the clay, eye socket and the eyes before we apply the real eyelid. So this was just foundation work before we put the eyelid. There's a lot more eyelids on the top of the eye than the lower part of the eye. Once again, if some of you guys have visited my channel recently, the clay I'm using is just a potter's clay, regular clay. It's nothing special. The color that you see is quite red. It's just because that's the clay that they sell in my local pottery places. Basically, there is gray ones that sometimes I can get my hands, and there's no difference anyway. It's just a matter of the color. I mean, they have that color. It's quite convenient for me to get, and I just buy it. So it's not that different. I mean, they have different colors too. They have them in white, darker ones, and I think they have them in white as well. But they're all potter's clay. So now we're working on the topper eyelid or upper eyelid. Once I apply that bigger roll of clay for upper eyelid, I'm still not done. Horned animals like antelope and sheep, when you're building the upper eyelid, there's still some good chunks of muscle that needs to be rebuilt from the top of the eyelid to where the horns are attached to the skull plate. You're gonna see what I mean by that. I could have stopped rebuilding right now, but there is a little bit of a dent if you think, and if you basically look quite good, there's a little bit of a dent or lower or a low spot, if you want to call it, on top of the eye that needs to be built and get it smoothed out. That's the spot I'm talking about. We gotta get rid of that low spot and make it smooth and feather out the clay, make it smooth, that you don't see that low spot or that big of a dent inside, like on top of the eyes. You're just gonna keep adding little pieces of clay till you feel good about it and it looks right. The eyes seem to be getting the shape that I want. Now we're going to be moving on and do a little bit of a clay work around the muzzle, the lips, and the nose area. Just a thin layer in front. And this is only for the upper lip here, and also for around the nose, just because once we have them a little bit clayed up, when we have the skin over it, the soft clay will allow us to create good impressions instead of the hard mannequin. I like to work with the softer clay underneath, on top of the mannequin, so it allows me to leave the lip lines and the nose lines, leave those impressions in the proper place. Okay, we are coming to the end of the first video on this antelope mount. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, guys, so if the videos are coming out, you know, a couple hours here and there, you're gonna get notification, and if you push that bell, you will get all the notifications and you won't miss any of the material that we put out. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you shortly in the second video.